North Korea has released footage showing the country's latest firing of 3 ballistic missiles off its east coast. The state broadcaster did not specify the date of the test fire. As North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has ordered the military to continue bolstering its nuclear force despite international condemnation. Syria has also called on the UN Security Council to, quote, take punitive and deterrent action against countries which support terrorism, particularly Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Qatar, and France. This after a wave of terrorist attacks on Monday claimed some 50 lives across Syria. A funeral procession is staged for some of the victims of Monday's car bomb attack in the Iraqi capital Baghdad, which left at least 12 people dead. Mourners carried the coffins draped in Iraqi flags through the streets of the central district of Karada. The French Prime Minister has called for a recount of the votes in Gabon's presidential election. Manuel Valls said there are rather doubts and arguments about the election results, and that a transparent electoral process can help end the political turmoil in the country. All flights at London City Airport have been disrupted after protesters from the Black Lives Matter movement locked themselves together on the runway. Officials had to redirect flights while police removed the arrested protesters. The group wanted to highlight Britain's, quote, environmental impact on the lives of black people. Clashes have broken out between Turkish police and protesters in Ankara who were rallying in solidarity with hunger-striking activists in the city of Diyarbakir. 8 protesters were detained. The campaigners were angry over the lack of information about jailed leader of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, Abdullah Öcalan. Bahrain's prominent rights group activist Nabil Rajab has faced new charges. This after the New York Times published his letter from prison in which he complained of the dire condition of detainees in Al Khalifa regime's prison. Bahraini prosecutors charged Rajab with broadcasting false news against the kingdom. And some 1,400 people have been evacuated after wildfire blazed through brush surrounding a popular tourist resort in Spain's Costa Blanca. The wildfire, fueled by intense heat, broke out on Sunday near the Mediterranean resort of Javia. It has so far destroyed 320 hectares of land and several buildings.
According to the city's police department on Thursday, the city of Chicago saw its deadliest month in 2 decades in August 2016, recording 90 homicides for the month. Authorities said that the last time Chicago recorded 90 killings in a month was all the way back in August 1996. For 2016's August, there were a total of 384 shooting incidents and 472 shooting victims. The city is currently on pace to have more than 700 homicides by the end of 2016. It hasn't had more than 600 homicides in a year since 2003.
Today on Press TV, the Syrian army has made fresh advances against foreign-backed militants in its push to liberate the western city of Hama. The army has already regained the control of several villages around the city. Damascus has been making significant gains against militants countrywide. Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif has reacted to Saudi Arabia's top cleric for his offensive language against the Iranian nation. The top Iranian diplomat says there's no resemblance between Islam of Iranians and most Muslims with the one preached by the Wahhabis in Saudi Arabia. New leaked files by former US intelligence contractor Edward Snowden have unraveled the mystery behind NSA's UK base. The Intercept, an online publication, details how America's National Security Agency used information gathered by Menwith Hill Station in Yorkshire to launch kill or capture missions in its global shadow war. The UN says the Palestinian economy is crippled mainly because of the Israeli occupation. According to a report by the UN's development agency, the economy could double if the occupied territories were freed from Israel's control. The report also says the occupation deprives the Palestinians of their human right to development. The Pentagon has hurled fresh accusations against Tehran, claiming Iranian military boats harassed a US Navy ship in the Persian Gulf over the weekend. According to U.S. defense officials, 7 Iranian fast attack boats approached the USS Firebolt during their maneuver on Sunday. The Turkish government says 3 of its soldiers have been killed by ISIL terrorists in clashes in northern Syria. According to Ankara, the soldiers were killed in a rocket attack near the village of Waqf. 5 other soldiers were also injured in a rocket attack on Turkish tanks. The UN Security Council has denounced North Korea's ballistic missile launches, threatening further action. On Monday, North Korea launched 3 ballistic missiles into the sea off its east coast. The UNSC says Pyongyang's missile tests are in violation of the Council's resolutions. Indian troops have once again clashed with pro-independence protesters in Indian-controlled Kashmir. The violence claimed the life of a 21-year protester in Anantnag district, while scores of others were injured. Dozens have been killed in similar clashes in the region since early July. Those were the latest here on Press TV.
Day back from summer break, the Senate did not approve new funding to fight the Zika virus today. 7 new infections are being reported in the Miami area. Now a total of 56 have been transmitted by mosquitoes traced to 2 neighborhoods in Miami and Miami Beach. David Begnaud reports that Florida is attacking mosquitoes on the ground and from the air.
Specialized turbine trucks buzzing like lawnmowers circled Miami Beach at 2 a.m. this morning, spraying BTI. It is a natural bacterium that slowly kills mosquito larvae. Over the weekend, 19 mosquito traps on Miami Beach showed an increase in mosquitoes. To combat the rising numbers, health officials announced aerial spraying will begin Thursday morning using the controversial insecticide Naled. Philip Levine is the mayor of Miami Beach.
We had initially heard aerial spraying was not possible because of the high buildings on Miami Beach and the wind pattern.
Yeah.
What's changed?
Well, I heard the same thing. And supposedly the CDC has decided that it is appropriate, and they've made that call along with the governor.
Naled is a neurotoxin banned in the European Union, but the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency says it's been used here since 1959 without posing risks to people. But spraying is not sitting well with Miami Beach City Commissioner Mike Grieco.
I'm not willing to take this lying down.
You'd be willing to sue to stop it?
If we can do it, yeah.
Grieco's Facebook page has been inundated with angry residents opposed to Naled. Alberto Gross says he'd rather take his chances with Zika.
The impact of the disease is relatively low, and when the solution could be just as bad as the problem.
Naled was sprayed last week in Dorchester County, South Carolina, after 4 travel-related Zika cases were reported there. A beekeeper who didn't know spraying was planned lost 2.5 million bees. She says killed by the toxin.
Back here in Miami Beach, that decision to use Naled is supported by the CDC and the Surgeon General of Florida. But Scott, as a precaution, they're going to do the spraying at 5 in the morning before students go to school.
David Begnaud.
Breaking news from Asia, where North Korea has test-fired 3 ballistic missiles. It happened as major world leaders, including President Obama, meet 650 miles away in eastern China. North Korea regularly engages in missile and rocket tests, especially when the world's eyes are turned to Northeast Asia. The U.S. is condemning the missile launch, saying it violates UN Security Council resolutions and also poses a threat to aircraft and commercial ships in the region.
Today, the parents of an 11-year-old Minnesota boy were in the courtroom as his admitted killer described the murder of their son 27 years ago. Last week, the man led police to the boy's remains, and in a controversial plea agreement, in return for confessing, he will not face murder charges. Jamie Yukas was in the courtroom.
After only 10 minutes of court proceedings today, the prosecutor turned and asked 53-year-old Danny Heinrich, "Did you kidnap, sexually assault, and murder Jacob Wetterling?" Heinrich responded calmly, "Yes, I did." Jacob's parents, Jerry and Patty Wetterling, sat in the front of the courtroom and listened to all the details of the final moments of their son's life on October 22, 1989. Heinrich detailed how he drove down a dead-end road and noticed 3 young boys playing with a flashlight. He approached them and ordered them into a St. Joseph, Minnesota ditch. He then told 2 of the boys to run away. Heinrich handcuffed Jacob and put him in the front passenger seat. Jacob asked him, "What did I do wrong?" Heinrich took him to a remote location, told him to undress, and then sexually assaulted him. Heinrich said he saw a nearby police car patrolling and got scared. So he pulled his revolver out of his pocket, he told the court. He then clicked once, and the bullet didn't enter the chamber. So he shot again, and that's when Jacob fell to the ground.
I want to say, Jacob, I'm so sorry. It's incredibly painful to know his last days, last hours, last minutes. We love you, Jacob. We will continue to fight. Our hearts are hurting. For us, Jacob was alive until we found him. We need to heal.
Local, state, and federal prosecutors started working together in 2015 when Jared Shirell asked investigators to reopen his own kidnapping and sexual assault case from the same year in nearby Cold Spring. Investigators found a sweatshirt that tied Heinrich to Shirell's assault, so they searched Heinrich's home again and discovered child pornography. Heinrich could face 20 years in prison, but of course the big question, Scott, is why won't he face murder charges? Prosecutors say that the Wetterling family, as well as the citizens of the state of Minnesota, were so desperate for answers after 27 years that they took the unprecedented step of offering a plea deal so that everyone could begin to heal once Jacob's remains were found.
And he's to be charged on the child pornography case. Thanks very much, Jamie Yukas, reporting for us tonight.
All right, to discuss this further, let's go to Los Angeles and talk to Muhammad Dawood Abadi, chairman of the Afghan Nation Peace Council. Welcome to the program, sir. Mr. Abadi, there's been an upsurge in violence in Afghanistan recently, many of which have been carried out by the Taliban. What are the reasons for the increase in Taliban insurgency, do you think?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. One of the main reasons is that the government in Kabul has not been able to meet its goal in what they promised when they first established. The 2 teams of Mr. Ghani and Mr. Abdullah, as Mr. Abdullah said yesterday, have not been able to achieve and meet the goals they set when they came to power. So because of this reason, the Mujahideen, or the armed resistance, has been supported by the people of the country and have been giving ways to attack major counties and cities and take over almost 37 districts, and also another 35 is under attack that can fall any day, today, tomorrow, and another 91 is in contest. So in another way, the government has not been able to deliver security to the people of Afghanistan, which signals the failure of the government in Kabul and their occupier supporters. But on the other hand, the Pakistani government has pushed the refugees to get out of Pakistan. So the armed resistance has no other choice but to control some territories so they could move their leadership and as well as their armed and their families and their people into the country back. And that obviously will add to the fuel, and the fighting will continue to be more stronger than before, which obviously this is an expectation. This is what we had expected, and this is what we had predicted many months ago through even Press TV and other interviews, that the government must understand that they're not going to be able to survive if they don't come to good terms with the armed resistance and agree on a peace deal that which will include the departure of the foreign forces from Afghanistan, so there could be a government that can deliver to the people of Afghanistan. So situations like this are not acceptable at all.
Right. Now, Mr. Abadi, very briefly, if you can, just how much is the Afghan government making efforts to provide security across the country and train its forces to confront militants?
Well, as you and I are aware, the occupiers of Afghanistan has been announcing and saying all along in these years that they have been trying to train the Afghan forces, ANA, to stand against the Mujahideen. But unfortunately, they are not well equipped, and the will of fighting is there, but they're not well equipped, and the armed resistance have better equipment than the Afghan forces in certain areas, and therefore they are gonna just keep on, and they are better trained, they are better fighters. Most of all, they have a goal to free their country from occupation. Unfortunately, there is no morale in the armed forces of the Kabul government because they don't see leadership. The leadership, there's a void of leadership in Afghanistan because the two teams of Ghani and Abdullah, they are fighting among each other to position their own men in certain areas, while they are fighting among themselves. The armed resistance is creeping in and taking control of areas, and people are supporting them because they're not corrupt as the Kabul government is.
All right. That was Mohammed Dawood Abadi, chairman of the Afghan Nation Peace Council, talking to us from Los Angeles.
Chicago is suffering through its bloodiest summer in decades. Over the weekend, 65 people were shot, 13 killed. Today, the police superintendent said he's doing all he can to fight gang violence, but he said it's not a police issue, it's a society issue. Dean Reynolds is there.
The 65 people shot in Chicago over the Labor Day holiday weekend included a woman 9 months pregnant shot in the abdomen, a pastor shot in the face, an 80-year-old man shot in the head, as well as several teenagers.
North Korea has released footage showing the country's latest firing of 3 ballistic missiles off its east coast. The state broadcaster did not specify the date of the test fire. As North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has ordered the military to continue bolstering its nuclear force despite international condemnation. Syria has also called on the UN Security Council to, quote, take punitive and deterrent action against countries which support terrorism, particularly